So if I said I'm sorry to you,
I would be offended.
because
I'm sorry about what happened to George Floyd, Josh. Really? Why are you sorry? What are you doing to change it? I would be way more frustrated thinking like, are you really empathizing with me? No, you're not, because you've never walked a day in the life of a black man in a world, or a society, not a world, but a society that's...
Okay, let's change it.
How'd you do?
I can't empathize with you. Does it piss you off more if I have sympathy for what happened to you? In this incident, this particular one that you mentioned?
Only if you do nothing with it.
Welcome to the Cigar Preacher. I'm a pastor in Arizona, and for years, I've enjoyed great conversations over cigars. Today, my guest is Josh Powell. Josh has served in the military, he's been a college athlete, and today he helps junior high and high school kids. Josh and I have been friends for a few years, and today we're going to have a very frank conversation about race. Josh has had a couple of events, traumatic events, happen in his life solely because of the color of his skin. Join Josh and I today as we talk about cigars, life, and what matters most. I'm Chad Moore, and I'm the Cigar Preacher. What you in the mood for, Josh? What do you like? Do you like light wrapper, dark wrapper?
Dark wrapper, full body.
Kind of Maduro heavy?
Kind of Maduro heavy, yeah.
Did you have a good lunch?
I had...
Okay, you know what we're going to do?
Ones that I've tried.
Have you ever had my father?
No. Let's do that.
I'm going to do the same.
That's a Toro. In case
Toro.
I like it, I need to be able to get it again.
My father, La Opulencia Toro. So this is your first My Father cigar.
Yes. A good friend of mine, when I was in Washington recently, recommended I try these guys out. So I'm excited.
Have you ever gotten sick smoking a cigar?
No,
You can be honest, man. It's just
yeah, no. It's I've never gotten sick smoking a cigar, but so I went to college at Bowling Green State University in Ohio. That's where I was raised, and I played a little bit of football my first year, and going to the meetings to watch game film and everything. But they had this thing where when you came into the meeting, right when you walked in the door, there was a table, and on the table was a stack of empty cups, a paper towel, and a few logs of dip or chew. So primarily, I think it was...
This is where? In Ohio?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is in Ohio, Bowling Green. So Ozzy Zumba, right? So
because you're obviously a redneck, man. You're gonna go for the chew.
I felt like I didn't have a choice. Like I didn't want to be the only guy that didn't do it, right? I was a peon. I'll admit that. You know, I followed the group.
Your name's not Bubba.
You know,
don't have to worry about
very much so. In no way was it Bubba, but I did. So I think I did Wild Turkey or Wild Rooster. I can't remember the name. It was something like that, Wild something. And nobody had ever given me a lesson on how to actually chew. So I'm watching the guys do it, you know, and I see them, you know, especially the big linemen, they're, you know, packing these big chews, and I'm like, all right, yeah.
Is it chewing tobacco or are they dipping snuff?
Or dip. It was dip, chew, dip. I thought they were the same thing.
Yeah,
so,
they're not. Go ahead.
Okay, but they're packing a dip. Let's say it like that. Okay?
So you're talking to somebody from the trailer park.
Yes.
So I can school you on this.
So I packed a dip, and it wasn't as packed as probably what it should be, because it ended up all over my mouth, and I swallowed it. And I don't know if you noticed, I'm black. So
I didn't notice.
It's hard to see me turn green.
Yeah.
But I was definitely green.
Yeah,
and I
you
threw
puke?
up. Oh yeah.
But you never got sick on a cigar.
No, never got sick on a cigar. So my first round of cigars was, you know, back then, a Swisher. I tried I think a Backwood or Blackwood.
Do you have, I always ask everybody, do you have a favorite cigar memory, cigar experience? Because it is about cigars. Cigars are good, but it's mostly about the friendship. It's not about the cigar, it's about the friends. Yeah, but
yes.
experience.
Yeah. So actually, I have a picture. I've still got this picture. It's in my album. It's at home. Wife and kids have gotten to see this. So when I graduated high school, at first I thought I wasn't going to be able to. I didn't have enough grades to get into college, which meant I wasn't going to be able to play football, which I was pretty good at. I was heavily recruited, scouted, all the things. Got to go on some college visits, and I just didn't take school serious enough. Found out about a week before that, before I graduated, that Bowling Green was going to allow me to come on as what they would call a Prop 48. So it was guys that they offered a scholarship to that didn't quite make the cut on grades. I think I had to have a 2.8, and I was like a 2.4 or 2.6 on the GPA scale. And so they're like, hey, we're still going to bring you on, but now you have to prove yourself academically. So if you see my graduation, this is when I was able to share the news with my two best friends at the time. In the picture, you see us just looking like the good old boys, right? And we're all, big guys. Two of us played football, and we got cigars in our mouth, and we strike this pose. We've got our gowns, no longer the caps because it's after the graduation, but we had our cigars and celebrated, Yeah. So that's my cigar memory. My first one, at least, real one.
Yeah.
I had a lot of life experiences at a young age.
Yeah.
So from, growing up in the inner city, moving to suburban in that time and stage, especially in Ohio, suburban white America, to trying college for the first time. There was more attempts at college later in life.
Okay.
To then the military, and then back and living in an Amish community in Pennsylvania. So imagine that.
In Lancaster?
We were in Middlesex, PA.
It doesn't have the weirdest names in that area of the world, in the Amish world. I remember driving up there one time. Should we go there?
Yes.
I'm going to go there.
That's why I'm laughing.
I literally am driving in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I hop out of the car and I take a picture of a road sign and I send it to my dad because I was about to pass through Blue Balls, and then I'm going to make my way to Intercourse, and then the third city was Paradise. And I'm taking a picture of this road sign, and I'm like,
oh, that's great.
What happened? I'm in the Twilight Zone right now. So what was it like being a black dude in Lancaster County?
That was interesting. Similar to, if you're familiar with Sylvania, Ohio, where we moved to, it wasn't where I first started in Ohio. I think there was only 5 black families.
Out of, what's the population?
About 70,000.
Yeah. 5 black families.
Yep.
In this town of 70,000.
Yeah.
Are you like the only black person you know?
When we moved out there, I met one other, this kid named Shane Abernathy, and only because we rode the bus together, we were friends. We became really good friends.
Same age?
Yeah, same age. So when we were living in Toledo, we were in a black community. I had one white friend. His name was Joshua Curtis, and it was because he went to our school. And me and him, we got to be good buddies. We were really good friends.
So you went from primarily black community, one white friend, to white community, you got one black friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was just.
Did you notice? Was it like culture shock?
No. And I would say I didn't notice it only because I loved being a silly guy. Yeah. I loved friends. And the way my mom raised us, it wasn't.
So you never talked about, hey, Mom, I'm the only black person in this town. Mm-hmm. You never did.
No, and she probably would have answered, no, you're not. You got your brother.
Yeah. So I got picked up. I want to go there here in this conversation with you because I want to learn here and I trust you and yeah. So not too long ago, I got picked up by an Uber driver at my house, and it was a black lady, and
Okay.
she's taking me to the airport. And I said, "Do you mind if I, sit in the front with you? Usually sit in the back seat of the Uber." And she's like, "Sure." And so I hop in, and we're just talking. She's asking me where I'm from, and
Okay.
I'm asking her where she's from. So she's from Washington, D.C. area,
Okay.
and I'm
Prince
from
George County, crazy place if you've never been there.
I'm from the southeast side of Dallas,
Okay.
from Mesquite, Texas. And she says, "Can I ask you a question?" We're about the same age. She said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "You can ask me whatever you want." She said, "Did you grow up racist? Like were you taught to be racist?"
No, is she assuming this because you're from Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my answer is yes.
Oh, okay.
I said, "Yeah,
Okay.
that's part of my upbringing, like words you shouldn't be saying
Sure.
or said around the dinner table, that kind of thing." And it's quiet
She know what to say.
in the car. No, it's just quiet. It's a heavy exchange here. And so I said, "Did you grow up to be racist?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "I was taught all white people are bad." And so we kind of get into this conversation of where we are now. Honestly, I said, I've given my life to Jesus. I said, he's changed my heart. I said, there were a bunch of things, that I was taught culturally that I grew up that have changed. And, I'm grateful that that's one of them. And she said the same. And then she said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a pastor." She says, "What church?" I say, "Sun Valley Community Church." And she looks at me and she says, "You have Celebrate Recovery at your church, right?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "I've been to your church." She goes, "You're Pastor Chad." I am Pastor Chad.
No, you're like,
so yes, by the time we get to the airport, I'm hopping out and she's like, "Can we get a selfie together?" So I'm like, "Yeah." And so I got it on my phone. It was just interesting that exchange. And I think we all want to pretend it's not there,
Yeah.
but it is. Somebody will say, and I'm going to ask you this one, since we're just getting all uncomfortable.
Yeah. Let's get uncomfortable.
Thank you
Yes.
for your trust. So when I have a friend who's a mentor to me, African American guy,
Okay.
pastors a huge church. He's taught me a lot, and he's telling me this story about being pulled over on a Sunday morning. He's got his suit on. He lives in a nice neighborhood. He's coming out of a nice neighborhood, driving his Lexus, and he gets pulled over. Guns are pointed at him.
Oh, it was extreme.
Extreme, the whole deal,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm saying, that's not true. Like this is my
Oh no, it
mentor
happens.
who I love and trust and respect.
Yeah.
And he's telling me this story.
Can't believe it.
And I'm going, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right?
But
so there's still this thing in me, right? Where I'm still like, I don't know if it's weird. And
yes
it creeps
and no.
up.
But I feel like that's why in some circles, when we talk about it, like you with this Uber driver, she was raised to think that all white people are racist. And I feel like, and even for your family, not to speak bad against them or anything like that, but that ignorance, I feel at the heart of it, there's some fear
Absolutely.
of the unknown, of this other culture, of other people, or whatever, however you want to define that. Because like for me, when we grew up, man, we were living out there. So by the time I got to driving, right, like I told you, there was Ottawa Hills, and then right there is Sylvania. And Ottawa Hills was very affluent. I mean, for the Toledo area, you're really, really rich white people. That's where they lived.
Okay.
And I do remember there was one time, sadly, it wasn't the first, or it wasn't the only time, it was the first time. I was driving home, cutting through Ottawa Hills. I wasn't speeding or anything, but I got pulled over.
You by yourself?
And I was by myself. And so the officer, it's a white officer, and he comes up to my car, and his words to me weren't anything in relation to breaking a traffic law. He just looks at me, he's like, "What are you doing in this neighborhood?"
How old are you at the time?
I was 16.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, all these racial thoughts or anything like that weren't really firing off in my head. Like, I wasn't worried. I just kind of looked at him like, what do you mean, what am I doing in this neighborhood? I live right over there, you know? And I'm like, well, I'm going home, you know? And so he's like, you're not supposed to be in this neighborhood, you know? And so he actually makes me get out of the car. And so he didn't put me in cuffs or anything like that, but he had me standing at the back of my car, and I'm facing my car. And so then he takes my ID, runs it, comes back, gives it to me, and he just tells me, he looks square right in my face. It's like, don't ever come through this neighborhood again, and tells me to go. And I'm like, whoa, and it kind of hit me there, because I was like, oh, that was it's kind of intense, you know? And I just remember being home later when my mom and my stepdad got home. I'm like, hey, so I got pulled over. My mom's like, what? What? And I explained it to her. And that moment was the first time that I can recall my mom ever sitting me and my brother down and like, hey, so there are some people in this world that are going to prejudge you or be prejudiced towards you, right? Because that's the definition, right? Prejudging, right? Or racist towards you just because you're a black male. And my mom always filtered things through love and grace. And she's, to this day, even though she, in those years, wasn't very loving in the sense of affection, it wasn't a lot of hugs and kisses and I loves you, you know, but there was a lot of grace and forgiveness, because that was the message that she gave me and my brother was, hey, you know, I even think she asked me if I got mad. I'm like, no, I'm trying to get home. I didn't think anything else of it.
Are you, let's just hit all the hot buttons.
Sure.
Are you like anti-police? Are you all cops are bad and racist? And
no, to think honestly, in all the however many billion people there are in this world, everybody's a bad seed.
Yeah. So you have this memory of what happened to you in high school. You said it's happened to you.
It happened
since
in my
then.
adult life, yeah, and it was way worse. I actually got arrested. The officer, I wasn't driving. I
want to hear this story.
And so Amy, my wife, had picked me up from work. We were, this was just us starting out on our adult life. We had, at that time, we only had one child.
Still in Ohio?
No, we were living here in Arizona, in Casa Grande, where we live now. And I was a sales manager at a gym, fitness gym. And she just picked me up. We're heading home, and we lived probably about 3-4 miles from the gym. So she literally picks me up. So I'm in the passenger seat. Our son, Josiah, who at that time was maybe 1, in the back seat. And we're driving. And I just remember looking in the rear view. I'm like, oh man, babe, you're getting pulled over. I'm like, what, were you speeding? It didn't seem like it. She's like, no, I wasn't speeding, you know.
And your wife is driving.
And she's driving. Now, little quick back end context. Amy's white. My wife is white. Okay. So the officer gets out, walks over to the car, and he just looks right through her. And he looks over at me and tells me to give him my ID. And I'm just like, and she asked the question, I think before I did, well, he's not driving. Why are you pulling us over? And ignores her, tells me to get out of the car. And I'm like, what is this about? I didn't do anything. I'm asking all the questions in the world, you know, and didn't even say anything. Didn't offer me a response. Didn't say a word as to why. A, he's telling me to get out of the car. B, why he pulled us over. And he immediately put me in handcuffs and puts me in the back of the car. And
of a squad car.
Back of a squad car. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, well, you can run my ID and everything. I don't have a record or anything like that. So I'm, again, questioning this, wondering.
You, your wife, your son's in the back.
Josiah's in the back, and I remember it as if it were yesterday, because he becomes hysterical. Now, Amy's hysterical.
How old is he at the time?
He's about 1. Okay. No more than 1.
Yeah.
And
he just feels the vibe in the air.
Because it was tension.
Yeah.
It was definitely intense. He doesn't offer Amy any valid solution or reason as to why I am now in the back of the squad car, why he's getting ready to take me to jail, which he did. He actually took me to the police station. He lets her go, says that the license plate light was out. So the license plate light was out?
Yeah.
That's the best one you can come up with? And so...
well, they don't arrest people for that.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he takes me to the police station, and Amy's grandmother, one of her close friends, was a retired judge. So Amy calls her grandparents, is explaining what's going on. I'm sure she's extremely hysterical. By now, I'm already at the police station, and I'm in a holding cell, sitting there asking questions, not getting answers, none of the sort. And God, it felt like an eternity, honestly, Chad. It felt like days had gone by, but it was more like about 2 hours, 3 hours of me sitting in this holding cell. And her grandmother, so my wife shows up, her grandmother, and this retired judge. And the officer said it was just mistaken identity. So they let me go. And it was in that moment, especially more so than when it happened to me when I was in high school, that I realized, all right, so I think I was going around in this shell like, yes, racism does exist. We can turn the TV on, you can look anywhere and see it. But in this moment, I realized it.
Yeah. I mean, you've had some BS happen to you.
Sure.
You see the George Floyd thing,
Yeah.
knee on the neck.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that. I mean, that specific situation is horrible, but it was symbolic, right? How did you feel when you saw that?
Okay, so there was a moment where I felt like, okay, America's mad. America's clearly divided. Am I on a side? Or should I be on a side?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times when I find myself in a perplexed state of being, I'll call my mom and I'll share my thoughts.
Yeah.
And she gives me good wisdom and perspective.
Is your mom just livid? Or
No.
Okay.
No, nowhere even close. And in this conversation that I was having with my mom, she was just like, Josh, that's not how you were raised. And I'm like, yeah, but like, shouldn't we all be mad? And she's like, well, should we? And she's like, that's not the lens that God would filter things through. And I'm like, well, so then what should I do? And she's like, the same thing you've been doing.
Let me get some clarification.
Yeah.
You guys are mad about the specific incident.
Sure.
But you're saying, should I be mad at all white people? And
yeah.
Like, hey, should I be mad at America?
Obviously, I think anybody that sees the incident and just as raw as it is.
Oh, it's horrible.
You can't say that you weren't upset, you weren't thrown off about it. Like
it's disgusting.
This is inhumane in a lot of ways, the way they treated him.
Yeah.
And then watch the video. Yeah, if you've got some type of a decent bone in your body, this bothered you.
What would you say to somebody like me, who I'm a white person that has, in God's sense of humor, that has some influence? Do you think somebody like me should apologize?
No.
Like for the racism of the past or the incident with George Floyd?
Did you cause the racism of the past?
Did I personally cause
Yes.
it? No.
No. Did you kill George Floyd?
No.
No. Okay. And I say that because to me, and I try to teach this to my kids, okay? An apology is taking ownership, right? You're apologizing for something you did. That's why we say sorry, right? Define the word, right? I'm sorry because,
Yeah. Well, sometimes sorry is empathy. I'm so sorry that happened.
Is it really though?
Talk to me.
I don't think so. I disagree with you in that because I feel like if you're saying sorry, then to some point or somewhere in you, you're agreeing with whatever it is that you're saying you're sorry about, right? And I don't feel like that's empathy.
So you feel like, so if I said I'm sorry to you.
I would be offended. I'm sorry about what happened to George Floyd, Josh. Really? Why are you sorry? What are you doing to change it? Okay. Yeah, I would be offended. I would be offended.
If I apologize.
Yes. Because you had nothing to do with it. And I would have respected you more had you said, hey, you know what? It really sucks what happened to George Floyd. It really sucks that the world we live in is divided by color, and this is how we choose to treat each other.
Well, that is
knowing
what I said.
that, right. But at the end of the day, if you would apologize, Really?
Okay, so I think people just want to do something, right? But they don't know what to do.
Okay, so if you want to do something, don't offer an apology, right? Because what did your apology change? It didn't make me feel all of a sudden, I didn't feel better because you quote unquote empathized with me, because you truly didn't. You have no idea what it's like to get pulled over and arrested when you're a passenger in the car.
I have never been cuffed. I have driven a Lexus on a Sunday morning and not had a gun pointed to my neck. That's never happened.
So then what are you really empathizing with? You know, and I know
that's a great
I get
point.
excited just thinking about it, because like I said, I would be way more frustrated thinking like, are you really empathizing with me? No, you're not, because you've never walked a day in the life of a black man in a world, or a society, not a world, but a society that's...
Okay, let's change it. I can't empathize with you. Does it piss you off more if I have sympathy for what happened to you? In this incident, this particular one that you mentioned.
Only if you do nothing with it. Okay, because if you're sympathizing in the fact that, you know what, this is wrong. We, right? We, people, we, culturally, America, right? Have to do something, need to do something, can do something different, can do something better. Okay, so if you're coming to me and that's where your sympathy is, hey, all right, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Don't empathize, because you truly can't.
Yeah.
Right? Don't tell me you're sorry. And I guess if you were to offer an apology, maybe let it be based off of your past, not off the situation. I'm sorry that I was once like them and I thought like that, but I've lived, right? And I've experienced and I've learned. I'm no longer ignorant. I'm not in fear of, right? So I'm sorry that I allowed myself to be like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because now, okay, you're empathizing with the culture of the situation. But if we're really talking about change, then there has to be conversations like these. We have to include differences, right? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all different. Even though I know, you know, in a lot of circles you're around a lot of white people, but you guys aren't the same white people.
No, very different backgrounds. Yeah.
Very different backgrounds.
Very different experiences.
Right? How is that any different then?
Yeah.
Right?
It's not.
You're able to find the common ground. You're able to build relationship. You're able to grow, right? So why can't that just be the same here?
Yeah.
You know, and then we shift gears and put our focus on loving God and loving people. If I'm going to treat you different because you're white, then I'm not loving people. If you're going to treat me different because I'm black, then we're not loving people.
Yeah, and we're not loving God.
And we're definitely not loving God, right? Because now we're creating that divide, and we are. At the end of the day, we're all created in His image, right? So I listen to the podcast a lot, and
the Sun Valley
podcast,
Loving People
Loving
podcast.
God, Loving People. One of the greatest things that you and Robert said on there was our mission is people, and our method is love. And if we intentionally live that model right there, then we're loving people right where they're at.
Yeah.
And it's not based on color.
I want to thank Josh for joining us today, and I want to thank him for his courage and his honesty. You know, when we talk about prejudice and racism, it's not a skin issue, it's a sin issue. Jesus said that all the law and all the prophets can be summed up in these two commands. We're to love God and we're to love people. Racial reconciliation and healing begins with this command from Jesus. We're to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Join us next time as we talk about cigars, life, and what matters most on the Cigar Preacher.